Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's been 90 years since Bhagat Singh Ji was executed in Lahore. Why is he still talked about today? And why was he voted the greatest Indian in a poll by the Indian magazine India Today, ahead of Gandhi and Subhash Chandra Bose? Hopefully, by the end of this session, these questions will be addressed. But we're going to start off, as we normally do, with a bit of Simran. Satnam Vaheguru, Satnam Vaheguru. 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 Let's look at his upbringing first. Living truthfully and fighting tyranny were a common trait in his family. His great-great-grandfather, Fateh Singh, fought in the Anglo-Sikh Wars, and as a result, he lost all of his land. He was asked to accept defeat with the possibility of gaining his land back, but he still refused. His grandfather, Arjan Singh, was from Jalandhar. Now, in the 19th century, the vast majority of the population of Punjab was in central and eastern Punjab. In western Punjab, the rainfall was low, resulting in barren land. In the 1880s, the Punjab administration began the vast process of engineering a vast irrigation scheme for the barren lands by diverting waters to a canal system. The project turned 6 million acres of dried wasteland to the most fertile land in Asia. So there was a scramble for land. 25 acres each, to be exact, and Arjan Singh was part of it. There, he fell under the influence of the Arya Samaj. They, like the Sikhs, had similar thinking against idol worship, against caste, etc. But also they were one of the first to call for self-rule, which is what attracted Arjan Singh to them. Now, Arjan Singh used to give dissidents and seditionists sanctuary, allowing discussions in his house. He had 3 sons, Kishan Singh, who was Bhagat Singh's father, Ajit Singh and Swaran Singh. James Carr, an intelligence officer, said that all 3 of them went to prison in 1910. Kishan Singh was sentenced to 2 years for the supply of seditious material. Swaran Singh arranged a protest because a Muslim boy was shot by the British. He was sent to prison and was made to do hard manual labour, and within 18 months he died of TB. Ajit Singh coined the term Bagri Samal Jatta, which means protect the honour of the turban, O farmer, which still resonates today, especially as there is a farmer protest happening right now, and the 23rd of February has been declared as Bagri Samal Jatta Day. Now, he was sentenced and then sent into exile for a speech which incited riots. He returned to India after 50 long years, the longest exile of any leader. Let's look at Bhagat Singh Ji's life. When he was 8 years old, Kartar Singh Sarabha, a Gadarite, was hung. Kartar Singh had returned from Berkeley University in California to try and start an uprising against the British, but he was betrayed and at the age of 19 hung. This was 1915. Bhagat Singh used to carry his photo all the time. He said to his mother, "This is my hero, friend and companion." Similarly, Udham Singh used to carry Bhagat Singh's photo. Now if you think about it, Kartar Singh Saraogi could have had a relatively easy life in the US, but chose to come back to help in the struggle. Now Bhagat Singh, he was 10 years old when Jallianwala Bagh happened, and it is said he went back to the Bagh after the attack and after the massacre and collected blood-soaked soil in a jar. Bhagat Singh was 14 years old when Sakka Nankana Sahib happened, which was covered in the last session. So at a very young age, he had knowledge and experience of fellow Punjabis being Shaheed. In 1926, at the age of 19, Bhagat Singh set up the Naujawan Bharat Sabha, the Young India Society, to bring together Punjab's youth under one banner. 2 years later, just outside Delhi, he gathered along with Chandrasekhar Azad all the youth that had splintered away from different states under the HRH banner, which represented the Hindustan Republic Association. It's quite remarkable that he left college at 17, and in just 7 years before he was hung, he achieved so much. It makes you wonder what could have happened if this emerging group of intellectuals youth were allowed to take their rightful place after India's freedom and not been lost. So he had an early knowledge of martyrdom. It's what sets him apart from the others, like Gandhi and Nehru. He is from the indigenous movement which believed in Shaheedi. His and their thinking was that there's no nobler way to fight for independence than to be prepared to die for it. This was at a time when very few, if any, leading politicians were ready to do that. Becoming a Shaheed as he did gave the people a hero, someone to look up to. He was someone who gave the ultimate sacrifice. The background to the two acts that he is best known for are as follows. On the 30th of October 1928, the Simon Commission arrives in India. It is made up of 7 members, all MPs and all white. They are there to discuss constitutional reform and the future of India. The Indians said this is a denial to our right to self-determination. Surely, if it is for us, then there should be Indian representation. So Lala Lajpat Rai meets the commission with 5,000 protesters. That didn't go down well with the local police superintendent, James Scott. He ordered a lathi charge into the protesters. People were beaten mercilessly. Scott himself sees Lala Lajpat Rai, who was an old man, and beats him severely. He dies later. That killing unleashes a wave of violence across Punjab and transforms the political landscape. Bhagat Singh decides they must avenge this death. In a similar way, later on, Udham Singh avenges the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Bhagat Singh, along with 3 other accomplices, decide to do the deed. On 17th of November, they go to the police station, but in a case of mistaken identity, they kill a junior officer, J.P. Saunders. They all escape. He returned after 4 months, and with a companion, throws 2 smoke bombs, which were quite harmless, into the Central Legislative Assembly, the present Parliament in Delhi, and then surrenders and states, "Inqilab Zindabad, long live revolution. Arrest me, as I want to have my day in court where I can explain why I did this." Now, while in prison, Bhagat Singh read profusely. He comes back to his Sikh roots and wants to be blessed with Amrit. And he also goes on a hunger strike to try and improve the conditions of his fellow inmates. The longest hunger strike at that stage was by the Irish strikers, who went on to 97 days. Bhagat Singh went on a hunger strike for 116 days. Clearly he was in a bad state, so the British tried to pass a bill where hunger strikers could be sentenced without attendance. Muhammad Ali Jinnah made a famous speech which made the bill fail. The British, not to be outdone, changed the goalposts. They moved the trial from a regular court to a tribunal. This was to have control over the judges. In fact, that actually happened. One of the original judges seemed to be siding with Bhagat Singh and his companions, so he was actually removed. Also, there was no chance of an appeal if done through a tribunal. The death sentence was passed down. The brave comrades were judicially killed through a legal system momentarily created only for them. Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru kissed the noose and were hung. At present, we are witnessing the largest protest in the history of mankind, the farmer protest in India. Similarly, Ajit Singh, Bhagat Singh's uncle, in 1906 stood against farm laws, and they won. Farmers from different states, from different faiths, are singing and reading about Bhagat Singh. There are activists like Navdeep Kaur and Shiv Kumar in our midst. Interestingly, but not surprising, in 2015 Shiv Kumar read a book by Bhagat Singh, and it's been with him ever since. In Lahore, where Bhagat Singh was hung, students used the name Bhagat Singh in slogans, and organisations are trying to get the government to give the country's highest civilian award to him, the Nishan-e-Pakistan. He is still and remains a hugely inspirational figure. Now, if you cast your minds back to a couple of the things Bhagat Singh done, one was creating the Naujawan Bharat Sabha, the Young India Society. This was a copy of Giuseppe Mazzini's Young Italy Party, which was formed in 1831 to promote a free and independent Italy. Also, the smoke bomb incident in the Parliament was a leaf out of Auguste Vaillant's book, who, in 1893, threw low-intensity bombs into the French Chamber of Deputies in revenge for the killing of his friend Ravachol, who was trying to improve workers' conditions in France. I just thought Bhagat Singh done a few things for the independence struggle, but these acts, his life, show the Sangha so much more to him. He was rational, measured, thoughtful, well-read, believed in the oneness of all, and was passionate about injustice. Again, in present times, we have the motto from Basics of Sikhi: arm yourself with knowledge. The Bhagat Singh story and Jugraj Singh's motto are a vision for the community today. It's great to have passion, courage and bravery, but it's also vital to have knowledge. Sangatji, I have made many mistakes in today's session. Please forgive me. We're going to end with some Mool Mantar. ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦਿ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।